The UDRcast is not affiliated and does not represent any 12-step fellowship. I, Bill Ward, the host of the UDRcast, will be sharing my experience and my journey of recovery. That does include, but is not limited to, the literature contained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. Our guests will be sharing their own path to recovery and what has worked for them. The UDRcast encourages and supports all paths to recovery. Welcome everybody to the UDRcast. UDR stands for Uncover, Discover, and Recover. My name is Bill Ward, and I'm coming to you from the recovery capital of Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Here we are going to discuss everything recovery, different perspectives, different experiences, both with the people I know and with others from around the world. If you resonate with anything you've heard on this episode today, we ask that you share it with anyone who you think may benefit from it. If you have any questions or comments, please find us at BILLWARDLIFE and send us a message in the info section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you are interested in more recovery content, you can find the buttons for the YouTube channel and other social media outlets on the homepage, and you will be redirected to those platforms. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time. So we're going to start reading on the last paragraph on 66. So let's just say essentially you've done your first three columns. You wrote who it is, you wrote what they did, and you know that it hurt you. So you've done the third column. So for anyone that's sponsoring, I'm just going to kind of mention a couple things. When they put their names down, that's good. It's just a name column. And then in the second column where it talks about what they did, okay, cap it off at like 5, okay? 5 bullet points. As you can see in the example, that first example, it had 3 bullet points. And they were really short and sweet and right to the point. That's what you want from your sponsees. And as sponsees, if you're writing step 4s, that's all that you really need to put, is like maximum 5 of those. Because when you go do your step 5, you're going to talk, let's just say you have 20 or 30 bullet points of resentments why you're mad at somebody. Why I'm going to stop you from fucking writing 20 or 30 fucking points of why you're mad at somebody? Because you're just fucking being in self again, right? And we don't need all of that on there, because when I go to do the step 5 with you, we're going to talk about all 20 of them anyway. And I'm going to show you where you are selfish and self-centered, right? And we're trying to because the alcoholic's problem is they're selfish and self-centered, we don't want that to manifest itself in the work that we're doing either. Which is why when we do the step 4s out of the big book, because the big book is the directions, there's people that come to me with their own version of step 4s, where they've just written out all their own stuff. And then in the third column, they just wrote all their own fucking effects, and I just give it back to them. And I say, that's not what I fucking asked you to do. That's part of the alcoholism of the alcoholic. They want to do what they want to do, and they want to do it how they want to do it. That's not how we do it, right? So we stick to the structure of the big book, because the big book is what the directions are. We don't let the sponsee dictate how it goes. Because when you look at their step 4, they've been dictating how everything goes their whole fucking life. And we're everything we do in this program has a reason. So when I work with somebody, I always tell them when I qualify them. And what I mean by qualifying, if somebody asks me to sponsor them, I'll say, okay, let's go for a coffee. And then we go for a coffee, and then now I qualify them. I ask them about their disease. Tell me your story in 5 or 10 minutes or less, so I can get an idea of where you're at in your addiction, and are you a real alcoholic and addict also. But I also say, okay, here's my requirements. I'm going to copy and paste and send you on a text exactly what I want you to do every day. It's prayers in the morning, prayers at noon, and prayers at night, and you don't fucking waver from it. And you have to do it. And if you don't do it, at some point down the road, don't lie to me. But if you're not doing the things that I ask as a sponsor, then I'm not working with you. Right? So I give them all my qualifications of what I expect. Okay, I'm going to assess, okay, I think this guy needs 5 meetings a week at least. I recommend 1 a day, but I'll say, okay, you're hitting 5 meetings a week, okay? Pick your meetings and go to those meetings. They can be online, whatever, I don't care. Just make sure you're hitting your meetings. And then I talk to them next week, oh, I didn't go to any meetings. Okay, I'll do that for a fucking week or 2. But if you're not willing to do what I'm asking you to do and what the book's asking you to do, then fucking what are we talking about? Right? You're not really willing to fucking change. And if you want to run the show how you want to run the show, then go ahead. Fuck, find another sponsor that's going to let you do that. And there are some that are out there, right? There's new sponsors that need to learn those lessons, but I'm not fucking learning. I'm already learning them. So we're going to get into the 4th column. We lived the 3rd column our whole lives. So that's easy stuff to put down. So we turn back to the list. So now we're looking back at the 3 columns that we did. For it held the key to our future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. So now we're going to start seeing shit different. Okay? We begin to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real. Because a lot of those resentments, as you could see in the Mr. Brown examples, he's making shit up in his head. And he's building what the future is going to look like, what's going to happen, and creating all his own mental bullshit in his head. So a lot of the resentments we have, they're not even actually real. Some are, but some are fancied. Okay? Had the power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than we could alcohol. This was our course. This was our course means here's your directions. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, though we did not like their symptoms. So the person is the 1st column, and they're spiritually sick. And then maybe you have a talk with them about that, about showing them how maybe I could share my examples with my sponsee how I was spiritually sick. And now we look at his list and show how his dad is spiritually sick. And how do we prove that? Though we did not like their symptoms. Their symptoms is column 2. And the way that they disturbed us, column 3. But they, like ourselves, were sick too. So here's a prayer. This is called the resentment prayer. This prayer is used in the work that we do. So if you want to bracket it or underline it or whatever, this prayer is really important. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. And when a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How may I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. So, for example, I got like 5 step 4s on the go with 5 different people right now. So I've been in this part of the book a lot lately. So what I've been doing with these people is I'm like, okay, you write the name and then you're writing the resentment. But I want you to say I want you to say this prayer for everyone that you're writing down for. Okay. And then maybe even at the end of the step 5, I'm going to tell the person again, I want you to go through your resentments. Even though they've looked at it now from a different angle, they're going to go through that list again and maybe say that prayer for every single resentment again. Okay? That is your typical process. But I'm going to explain something to you after this 4th column that I do where I don't really need to give the person this prayer. Okay? Vernon.
You said resentment prayer and I have anger prayer to separate it from the 552 resentment prayer. Does it make a difference? They're both like resentment prayers?
They're both resentment prayers. I prefer the one at 552. It's not really a resentment prayer at 552, but you can build a prayer from it. I prefer 552. So what Vernon is saying on page 552 on the first full paragraph, there's some directions there of how you can deal with resentments too. And I almost always prefer to give them that one versus this one, if I have to give it to them at all. Okay? But as new sponsors, you're probably going to have to give them either this anger resentment prayer or the directions on page 552.
I noticed that when when I know that there's a resentment building up, I call my sponsor and she asked me to read this one a lot, and I do, and it helps me. But what I say, not what I say, but what God helps me say is that we ask God to help me show that person the same tolerance and pity and patience that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended me, I said to myself, this is a sick friend. How can I be helpful to her or him? God, help me from being angry.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helps me because I put myself in that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I'm not angry or resented
Right.
at that person.
And you're 3 years in.
Yeah.
So as you continue on the journey and you've been doing the work for 3 years, what happens with this literature is as you work this literature and you're in it because you're sponsoring, so you're always in it and you're seeing it, you start being able to, the literature can change and it does different things. So you're now changing it and making it do different things.
Like before, I never knew this existed. Just this year, I just started learning this year.
Right. So there's an example of something that's really important that you missed.
Yeah.
That is really important in the first round of steps.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of like how the program is in general. There's a lot of shit that gets missed and people aren't getting the right information. Right? People are not delivering the right information to you guys so that you can understand the illness and then understand the solution. So then we fucking work through the steps, we read it, we don't really understand what it's saying, and then we finish the steps and then we just try to self-will the program into our lives. And then what happens is most of us get drunk again. Because we're still running our lives on self-will, but it just looks different. Right? So, yeah.
Sorry. You can get sponsees or myself to read this after. Should it be after the resentment list is done?
You can do it before, while they're doing the resentments, and after.
And after, okay.
Okay? Or both. But
after the list is done and then after the fourth column's done.
right. Well, once your step 5's done. So during the step 4, when they're writing it, yes. And then when you have done the step 5 with them, and you are done the step 5, now you're going to send them home. You're going to say, okay, now that we're done the step 5, you go through your 30 resentments, and every night you're going to say this prayer for every single person, or every morning, right? But I prefer to give them, once the step 5's done, the one on 552. To me, that one's better. And the thing about this prayer here is it says, save me from being angry. Right? So I'm actually, in a sense, I'm perpetuating anger still. Because I'm still focused on anger. It's kind of like the saying, like, I'm either thinking of drinking or I'm thinking of not drinking. So if I'm thinking of not drinking, I'm still thinking of drinking. So this one's like, okay, save me from being angry. So I'm asking, don't let me be angry. So I'm still kind of working in anger. Right? So over time, this can be changed to, God help me show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that I would, pack into the stream of life and give people. Allow me to give people love. Allow me to see this person as emotionally and spiritually sick and frequently wrong, just like me. Let me love them, and we change it to like a positive overtone of something that's more ingrained in a positive way versus the negative way. But we got to start at the start, right? And those kind of things will manifest themselves over your time in recovery. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the only thing that's ever made sense of, I think it was Christ's message that said, turn the other cheek. Never understood it until I got to this piece here. Like, without forgiveness, I'm lost.
Right. So I'm going to give you guys a little glimpse into what I give my sponsees.
Need a group text it?
Yeah, if you want this,
Yes, please.
come and ask me and I'll shoot it to you. But I give all my sponsees this, okay? And it says, in the morning before you do anything in capitals, 1, read the step 3 prayer on page 63. Then say a prayer using in your own, basically saying the same thing. Read the step 7 prayer on page 76 in the 12 and 12. Read on awakening, page 86 to 88. Read step 11 prayer, page 99 of the 12 and 12. That's what they have to do in the morning before they do fucking anything, right? And then around noon or 2 o'clock, you stop. No matter what the fuck you're doing, you can find 2 minutes. And you can read the step 11 prayer on page 99 of the 12 and 12. Understanding that the prayer has 2 Lords. We'll talk about that later. So the step 11 prayer has 2 Lords in it. Most people don't understand that prayer. So with my sponsees, I talk about the prayer. I explain what the prayer means so that they understand more of what we're doing. And then at nighttime, I say top of 86, which is when we retire at night. Follow the directions. Okay. Finish with a thank you prayer to God for the day and the lessons that you learned. Pray for more willingness to change and read page 68. And then I wrote, always remember and burn this into your consciousness. This is what I use. Like, this is one of the main things I use in my sponsorship, and it's a fucking game changer. It comes from 2 parts of the literature, one in step 10 in the 12 and 12, and one from this step 4 in the big book. I get them to say this all the time. All people are emotionally ill, spiritually sick, and frequently wrong, just like me. Always repeat this in every situation with people. And then I wrote at the end, you can pray and call on your God to help you all through the day. You don't have to wait till the morning, the noon, or the night. Talk to God, Creator, like your best friend, because He will be. Call and reach out to me when needed. And that's what they get. And then I give them that, and then they send them on their way. And then every week we meet, we'll read. And then I ask them, are you doing your prayers? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And if they're not, then I give them shit. And I tell them, like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, you don't get it. If you're not doing the pennies and the nickels, the dollars will never take care of themselves. These are the pennies and the nickels. For anyone new in recovery, it's the little things that matter the most, okay? And for people that are more advanced in recovery, starting to understand self, because most of us won't fucking call when self is a problem, and we're not dealing with self still yet because it takes time. But I always say it's like this. You can run around your life and throw matches in your house, which are your decisions based in self, which is I'm being angry, I'm being judgmental, I'm fucking watching some porn and I shouldn't be. So I'm running around my life throwing matches in my house. And then usually the sponsee typically will call you when the house is fucking torched and it's burning down, because he's made about 20 fucking decisions based in self that took him to the burning house. And then he calls me and says, I need help. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do now? I can't do anything now. Basically, all you got is pray, let the fucking house burn down, and we'll fucking get going again. And when I'm saying we're burning down the house, maybe he's relapsed by then. Maybe he's fucking burnt his marriage down. Maybe the relationship with his friend. Or maybe, who knows? It's a multitude of things. But if he's watching the matches and he calls me when he's throwing matches in his life, him and I can put the matches out really easily. Those are the little circumstances of your life that you're fucking struggling with. That's when we call our pillars. That's when we call our sponsors. When the little things are happening so that the fucking house doesn't burn down. And if you're calling me on the little things, the thing that sponsors get good at is they can point out to you what we're going to learn in the 4th column, where you're being selfish, dishonest, resentful, afraid, judgmental, fucking self-righteous, whatever it is. You owe an amend, whatever. I can point that out to you if you're fucking calling me when the matches are burning down. And why I use that example of the house burning down is because if you don't take care of these pennies and nickels, you fucking burn the house down and you're fucking drunk. Because you've been living in the spiritual malady with every match. Every match is a fear. Every match is something based in fear. And you will fucking succumb to the desire again because you're fucking... That's how we are built. You fucking will drink. Okay? And if you're not drunk, if you're dry drunk, then you just hurt people. And then what happens when you hurt people is you create shame in yourself and you fucking feel bad about what you're doing, but you're powerless because you keep doing it. And if you don't fucking seek a solution, first of all, looking at what you are, how it's fucking operating you, how you're powerless over it, you can't fucking work on fixing it. So it's really important, and that's why I say spirituality is mostly, for me, the biggest importance is the fucking inventory. Because it's all the shit that's blocking me from God that's actually making me not spiritual. And my ego can think I'm spiritual by going and saying some prayers, but you're not spiritual. You just want to be. Like, real spirituality is actually based in pure love, man. And that is actually what this journey is. It's about fucking truth of self and love for yourself. And once you're truthful with yourself, you don't need to justify fucking nothing. And think about your life. If you're justifying your behaviors to people, oh, I just did this because of this. Oh, I did that because I'm angry. Oh, I did this because it was a tough day at work. Oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. You're fucking saying your truth, but you're justifying it always. Because justifiable truth based in fear and ego always needs to be justified. But when you get authentically truthful with who you are, you don't need to justify fuck all. Because you're working in love for yourself and you set a boundary in your life where you're like, you know what? I don't need you actually in my life anymore. You're actually causing me a lot of pain and a lot of harm. You know, you can live your life however you want, but I'm going to choose to live mine how I want. And you know what? So I'm going to move on from the friendship. Whereas 20 years ago, I would have said, get the fuck out of my life, you motherfucker. Right? Maybe you would have punched him out. And then 2 months later, I need a drinking buddy, and so I'm fucking calling him back, right? Right? But authentic truth is the journey. And I think this has been the theme of this big book study, as you walk through your life, you got to stand in your truth. You got to stand in the truth of what it is that you are and what you believe. But first you got to find out who you are, right? And look at what the beliefs are that you've made yourself who you are based on the beliefs. Fucking get rid of some of the beliefs because some of those beliefs aren't even yours anyway. But as you walk through the journey of recovery, it's about standing in your truth. And your truth today might be still based in some fear and some ego and some brokenness, but at least yesterday you're further today than you were yesterday. So as you stand in that truth, and as long as you're willing to make that decision to say what you got to say, you can learn and you can grow from it, and it's not a mistake. And then you grow a little further, and then the next day, 2 days later, you're in a new truth, and you can stand in that truth. And then through the journey of truth, you get to fucking like love. And once you get to love for yourself, you don't need to justify your behavior or your words anymore because you're kind and considerate. But you can put the line down because your worth is worth it. Usually we sell out our soul or ourselves because we're afraid of conflict with somebody else. Oh, I'm not going to say anything because they're going to get mad. So you're like, okay, I'm being the nice guy. You know, don't you know how nice I was? I didn't even say anything to you last night because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Really? But that is all self, right? And that just causes like a lot of pain. So the goal is to get to some type of authentic truth of who you are so that your boundaries are set from truth and your words don't need to be justified. Your actions you don't need to justify. And even when everyone else is still talking and pointing and judging you, as long as you know you're living the best version of you that you can and you're fucking growing, you don't give a shit what other people think. That's what you want, man. That's what you want. And if they're coming at you with fucking nastiness, you can go back at them with fucking love. And really, love needs nothing, right? Love is full, it's complete, it's pure power. That's what God is. It's pure power. It needs nothing. So as I come at you with love, and you come at me with force and pride and fear and I disintegrate your shit with love. But some people, as they're working in this journey of working with love, and people are combating them and talking about them and being mean to them, they're like, no, I have to fucking fight back. No, you don't. You have to learn that you don't have to fight back. And you know he's emotional, spiritually sick, and frequently wrong.
Yeah, he is, very. He's very sick.
And there's his symptoms. And it doesn't affect you in the third column like it used to.
Yeah.
Because you're getting strong and truthful with who you are. So it doesn't matter,
Bother me.
right? And that's like what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Sorry, Bill, just at what point, like, how do you differentiate when, because you said you don't need to fight back, but like, when, or how to react to a situation where you're not fighting back, but like, without taking that on, or becoming like a punching bag, you know what I mean? Like, someone else's shit.
Right. So that takes time, right? And at first it's like, well, how am I going to fucking live this spiritual life and not get beat up and be a doormat? Well, through the experience down the road, because if you know you're being a doormat, then you're fucking not living in your truth yet. But if you can at least say, you know what, fuck you, I'm not going to do that, then maybe you acted out in some fear, in some resentment, but at least you took a step, right? And as you keep working the program, you will figure out the balance of all of that, because you will see, okay, now I'm overcompensating the other way. Now I'm a fucking doormat and people are taking advantage of me. Well, that's what the pillars are for. That's what the inventory is for. And then you start balancing, and this thing starts balancing out. Recovery's like this at first. Woo, woo, woo. And then it kind of goes like this. But then 4 years, 5 years, 6 years in, this is the recovery for me today. I don't fucking struggle with hardly anything, right? But the thing with me is I've put more work into this recovery thing than fucking like a lot of people. I really look at myself, and even when, like, I got stories where I've been judged heavy in the program for shit that I did. And I got to take responsibility. Yeah, I fucking did do that. And it wasn't good. But I learned my lesson. And I always learn my lesson. Like in how it works, it says we claim spiritual progress, not perfection. It's not just progress, not perfection. The literature says we claim spiritual progress. What is spiritual progress? Meaning in a deep and meaningful sense, you learn the lesson from every decision that you've made, and you don't make mistakes. You're not making mistakes if you're trying to live with true humility. If you have a sincere desire to seek and do God's will, and you really fucking put that bar here, and you're trying to live that with love and kindness, although you still got fear and you got resentments and you got these behaviors, you're going to learn through the lower levels of humility, of the fucking humiliation of making a decision that you're like, fuck. And then through that decision, now there's a lot of like reclamation work to be done, and the pain to get the respect back from some of the people based on that decision is painful. But you keep moving forward because you have a desire to seek and do God's will. You don't need to go fight them and justify what you did. You just learn your lesson and you move forward. And then you fucking slowly come up the ladder, and then you get to the point where you're like, you know what? You can judge me all the fuck you want. I know. And the people closest to me, they know. When we talk about the fellowship you crave will grow up about you, that's what we're fucking talking about. We're talking about the fellowship of the Spirit, the fellowship of God. We're not talking about the fellowship of Tradition 3. The program is littered with the Tradition 3 fellowship. The Tradition 3 fellowship is sick as fuck. Think about it like this. You take the sickest people in society, okay, which is us. Now you jam us all into a fucking CO2 cartridge and think we're all going to be well. The CO2 cartridge is the program. Not everybody's well here. And for new people that come in, they start going, holy fuck, everyone's like saint-like here, right? And then they start like 8 months in, a year in, they're like, holy fuck, this guy's not even living the program. He's fucking bullshitting him. And then they start getting resentful. What a sham. What a sham this place is. Look at all these people saying all this shit. And I saw him fucking picking up hookers downtown last week. I saw this guy peeling out with a newcomer who was fucking 3 days sober out of the parking lot. He just fucking talked about not 13 stepping. Like, you see that shit. And then the people get resentful at the program. It's not the program you need to be resentful at or judge. People are people. They're emotionally ill, spiritually sick, and frequently wrong. When you understand the statistics of this program, that 5% of the people are doing 95% of the work here, that changes your fucking view. And the fellowship that you crave, really, will grow up about you, and it's the fellowship of the Spirit. And the paragraph that tells me that is the last paragraph on page 164. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. And you will surely meet some of us, as you trudge the road of happy destiny. What does trudging the road mean? Trudge does not mean walking up to your neck in problems and pain and harshness of life. Trudge in the big book, when you tie it back to the book, it means walking with purpose. It means walking with purpose. And what does it say in the book? It says our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And it's when you're fucking of service to God and the people about you, and you're not of service to you, that's where the fellowship of the Spirit is. And those people know who the fuck you are. Those people will pick you up when you've fallen down and it looks like you made a mistake and people are fucking thinking shit of you. Because we know who you are. Right? And you're not you based on what you drive, how good you look, fucking how sexy you are. You're not you anymore on that thing. Because that's who we were. We love you for your fucking kindness, for your compassion, for your character, for who you fucking are underneath it all. Even though you might get angry once in a while, even though you might make a mistake in a relationship or with sex relation. We fucking know that you're trying hard and we help pick you up and then you move on. That's what this is about. But the fellowship of the Spirit is fucking that fucker, that bitch. You know, there's a lot of that shit going on. There's levels of recovery. There's low level, mid level, and high level. You got to go, what do I want? What do I really want? Right? If you want high level recovery, then you got to seek out high level recovery people. You ask them what they're doing and you do what they do. If you want medium level recovery, there's lots of that there. You want low level recovery, there's lots of that there too. But it boils down to what you really want in life. Do you want to change? Do you want to be the best you can be? Do you want to fucking be the best person you can fucking be? Because if you do, it's hard. And if you do what's hard, your life will be easy. Because you don't exist just now. You actually exist in a community of yous through time. And if you take the easy route now by lashing out in anger or taking the easy fucking guy and getting that sex relation or fucking being a bitch and get that relief now, it doesn't serve you down the road. But as you fucking stand in the truth and fucking bite your tongue and fucking don't take the easy piece of meat, we'll say, I would say tail, and you don't take it, even though you want to, and you could, and we always can, and we always have, but am I trying to change and am I trying to be different? Because the community of yous down the road is what matters. Because it's not just you here today. So the benefit that you think you get now doesn't actually benefit you in your life down the road. So you do what's hard, which is this work, building of character, and your life gets easy. If you keep doing what's easy, taking the easy guy, fucking doing the easy route, cutting the corners, not doing the thing, your life's fucking hard, man. Because you're running it, essentially. And no life fucking works well like that, at least as far as I can tell. Right?
One thing that you said one time that I thought was really good was you said, you don't have to set boundaries.
Right.
You don't need to set boundaries because if our value comes from the God of our understanding. That's where my value comes. It's not from everything around me. And I can live in that place of love. I can handle that shit. I don't wade in it, but I don't have to set boundaries all the time. Because, I'm healthy.
Right, because there's one boundary setter.
Yeah.
That's the boundary of truth. That's the boundary of self-love. Most of us go through life setting boundaries out of insecurity and brokenness. I don't want this guy in my life. I don't want that person in my life.
An unwillingness to change.
Yeah.
An unwillingness to get well.
Right. And continually intend through every day. Okay, I did not make it to where we should have. We made it to exactly where we did last week, and I was trying to just skim through that. So at least next week, for sure, we'll make it through. Roger. Thank you, Anna. Okay, we need one person to volunteer a prayer to shut us down. Who wants to? Who's shy but wants to pray?
I'm super shy about praying.
Go for it.
A twist out.
Make it good. I'm kidding. Make it from your heart. Make it real. Thank you. So next week will be fourth column, which is the most important column for us, and fears. Hopefully fears. So thank you all. Thank you for tuning in to the UDRcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. The viewpoints and the opinions expressed today were solely of the individual sharing them. If you resonated with this episode, please follow us and share this link with anyone that may benefit from it. Please visit us at BILLWARDLIFE to see everything that we have going on. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time.